Am I the butthole for telling my cousin the truth about her Native American heritage? This has caused some major drama in my dad's side of the family, and I'm seriously wondering if I am the butthole here. My 18 female grandfather was a full-blooded Sioux Native American. He had 2 sons, my dad and my uncle. My uncle had a daughter named Kay, 17. All of them except me are very dark-skinned. My mom is a white lady, which turned out to be the dominant gene for me, so I am quite light-skinned. My dad is half Native American, and I am a quarter. Kay, however, isn't at all because of family drama surrounding her dad that Kay was never told about. As we got older, my dad and uncle wanted us to become more integrated with what is left of our tribe, so we would visit Grandpa's extended family often. We would go together in one car, and every single time she would get pissed and throw a tantrum about me coming. Kay was horrible to me about it every time and would tell me how stupid I am and how I'm an ugly white bitch. My dad and uncle always just brushed it off, and I just had bite my tongue and take it. Things finally came to a head 2 weeks ago when she stopped us at the door and said she will not be going under any circumstances if I am also going. Kay said that I am an embarrassment to our family and to the tribe because of how light-skinned I am, and that my dad is a racist towards his own people for letting me be a part of this culture. This was the first time she had ever said anything like this where they could hear it, and I finally snapped. I was done letting this girl bully me, so I told her the truth about her heritage. I told her that she's actually wrong. I am more Native American than she is because her dad isn't Sioux at all. My grandmother had an affair with a neighbor, he was Mexican, and kept the baby. Grandpa loved him like a blood son anyways and brought him up the same way he did for my dad, but my uncle was aware the entire time he is an honorary Indian, his words not mine. Kay absolutely lost the plot and has completely disowned me and my dad's side of the family. I haven't heard from my uncle, and my dad said that wasn't my story to tell, but he understands why I did it. Grandpa's family don't care, they knew the whole time. Kay is apparently having a major identity crisis, and my uncle's wife cussed me out on the phone, and she's also disowned me and my dad. Edit. It was made clear by a couple of commenters that Kay's remarks don't add up. I meant to say that Kay's remarks about me being an ugly white bitch would never surface when we were all in the car. Those happened in private, which is why her outburst 2 weeks ago was the first our dads had ever heard. Sorry for being unclear. Edit 2. I want to say thank you all for the attention this post got. You've all helped me see this situation from different angles and given me insight I didn't have before. Also, thank you to the 6 kind strangers who gave this post awards. I might get downvoted, but NTA. You put up with years of mistreatment from her part and finally snapped. The way that I see it, you telling her the truth is her own fault. Yeah, it's the uncle's fault for letting his kid be a bully. You raise kids who are bullies, you're forced sooner or later to deal with the consequences of your crafty parenting. Not the butthole, original poster. To be fair, it sounded like he didn't know until the incident. My dad and uncle always brushed it off. Nah, they knew what she was doing even if they didn't know the specific words she used. I don't know, sometimes you're willing to let some small stuff go, as a parent. It gets pretty hard as they grow up. But you're still right, the signs were likely there. Op said in comment she explicitly told her dad and uncle that she was being cruel to her. Did she say she was being racist specifically? No, but if it's bad enough that she tells the people in charge that her cousin is being cruel, they can't act like they weren't told and be upset it blew up in their face. Ugly white bitch isn't some scuffle. It's racist. But hey, it's only against a white passing Sioux, so I guess doesn't count. Why do people care so much about Native American ancestry they're willing to be buttholes about it? Mexican culture is just as cool. For F's sake, everyone's bragging about being Native American these days for some reason. We're all people. The cousin is TA and original poster is not the butthole, and I have a migraine. It's the victimhood totem. Natives rank way higher on the oppression scale because of the whole taking over their land thing, and I would imagine are a lot more uncommon than Latinos around the states. So in arguments she can always out-victim everyone. People like these that make one feature they were born with the core of their personality, whether it's race, sexuality or something else, are always incredibly insufferable. The reason she's having a meltdown, identity crisis, is just because of that. She's probably dug herself so deep into the woes me shtick that it's going to completely demolish her social life. Non-American here, I always assumed it was a way for white people to negate the reality of living on stolen land, or at least, one's ancestors having stolen the land. To claim a part Native heritage, they believe cancels that part out. Also, it's a way of saying, I'm not actually just white and therefore privileged but have an ancestral link to oppression. See also Irish American claims, all while not actually looking in any way other than a white person. I may be wrong about all of this and welcome being corrected. I think there might be something in this. I'm not American either, but I am mixed English and Indian. When I read about the terrible things the British Empire did, I have an out because I'm not just English. I don't have to deal with being the descendant of oppressors because I'm also the descendant of the oppressed. I don't know how I'd feel if I weren't mixed, especially because I've looked into my English family tree and they just lived in a tiny village for about 600 years, being no trouble to anyone. I know I've seen white people take any criticism of what past white people have done and how it still affects people today as if it is a personal criticism of them, and being mixed means I never have to feel personally attacked when people talk about white people or English people. I have a friend who is mixed German/Polish. One grandmother spent World War II on a Nazi-run farm, far enough away from the atrocities that she could describe it as not unpleasant on a day-to-day basis. His grandfather on the other side was in Dachau. We haven't really gone into the depths of his feelings on that, but it is different to be descended from the oppressor and oppressed rather than just the oppressor. This is super interesting, and to be honest, I've never thought about how one feels about identity if the identity is from both oppressed and the oppressor. I've read pieces from POC who have essentially been descended from slave and slave owner, be likely rape of some kind, and they seem to identify with the black part of the heritage and still see the white part as the oppressor enforced upon them. However, with circumstances like yours, this is of course different and even more complicated. I'm Irish and was raised in Northern Ireland during the Troubles. Irish people have a tendency to assume they're not included in the white people diatribes as they're not the like other white people for example, being one of the only white nations to suffer under colonialism, the Troubles being an extension of that. There's a whole thing with identifying with Black America specifically in the civil rights movement. However, we don't consider Americans who call themselves as Irish to fall into this, and I'm sure people of color etc. would laugh at all of it in general. Identity is such a complicated issue. Definitely a thing. I'm German with some Czech ancestry, and I used to emphasize the Czech part enormously, at least partially because I somehow felt it cancelled out the collective German guilt. Worked like a charm until my mother overheard me talk about it once and wasted no time setting the record straight. My Czech great-grandfather had to flee the country after the war was over because the family collaborated with the Nazis. Whoops. Nah. You're way more right than the other guy. Yeah, there's some toxic people who like to play the victim, but the number of white people who claim to be 1/16 Native American far outstrips the number of people who like to play the victim. It's partially what you said, I can't be racist. I'm 1/16 Cherokee. Or, as you said, I can't be racist. Irish people were denied jobs, too, so we had it just as bad as black people. They like having the cover for their crafty views. They pick a clean minority because they think that gives them free rein to crap all over the dirty minorities. Another part was that even way back when white people first came here, there were different tiers of POC. Black people were the lowest, but Native Americans were referred to as the noble savage, spoiler tag for offensive term, because they were not quite as low as black people in the racist's view. Black people were seen as never being able to rise above what they were. But certain Na tribes could be converted and taught to be white, others were killed outright. That's why it's almost always Cherokee that they claim. They were one of the most willing to convert. It was later that the actual darkness of the skin came into play and Nas all got slaughtered or shoved off their land regardless. So, some families were created between a white person and a Na person, and way back when, that was okay. And some families were created between a white person and a black person, and that was considered very much not okay. But if your kid had skin that was sort of in between white and black, then you could claim that they were half white and half Na, because that was a little more acceptable than half white and half black. That's why a lot of families who've always been told they were 1/16 of some tribe are now finding out through those DNA testing websites that they have African blood. TLDR, some of it is that racist like using the cover of being partially an acceptable minority. Some of it is that racist families covered up dalliances with less acceptable minorities, sometimes just to protect the kid, sometimes out of shame. Note, none of this is to minimize what Native Americans went through. It was every bit as horrible and traumatizing as what was, and still is, done to everyone else. And we absolutely did steal their lands and kill untold numbers of them. This is just to show that there are different flavors of racism, and some of them seem good at first. The noble savage sucks as much as any other positive stereotypes and did nothing to help them in the long run. Ops should start practicing Spanish next time they meet. Hola cousin, ¿cómo estás? I'm probably a horrible, spiteful person with a blackened husk where my heart should be, but I'd be awfully tempted to just start referring to the cousin as a cousin conquistador until they eventually go away. No, original poster should tell her cousin that she wants to bury the hatchet. Then explain that it's an idiom that originates from her people's practice of burying an axe to mark a peace agreement. Just want to thank you for the laugh. I really needed it, and that was an incredibly high-tier portmanteau. A+, with extra credit. Well, then the cousin would just refer to original poster as a colonizer. Indigenous Southern North Americans, Mexicans, had their land taken by Spaniards while their people were enslaved and raped and indoctrinated with Catholicism. Indigenous Middle North Americans, USA Native Americans, had their land taken by England. They were killed and the few that survived were isolated on reservations. So really, what's the issue here? Dad, brother, cousin, they are all indigenous people who used to live in a continent with no borders, until Europe came and forced its individualistic commercialized way of life. Play racist games, win paternity surprises. Yeah, original poster was like a personal telegram from 23andMe. Nice. Maury would be proud of this one. OP, you are not a Sioux. Ops tormentor breaks down ugly crying and throws herself onto the nearest couch. Take my upvote. Random question from an Aussie, how do you pronounce Sioux? Also an Aussie. Lol, I don't know. I think it's Sioux, at least according to Google. Am American, you are correct. Sioux, or Sioux's pronunciation is correct. Google knows all. Hee thanks. Wasn't sure if it was different to a French pronunciation. Your dad and uncle are the buttholes for not stopping her from being awful in the car. What is up with that? I would never let somebody talk to my kid like that. Not the butthole, she had it coming. If she's going to be a stuck-up nightmare like that, then that's what she gets. Maybe during her identity crisis she can somehow figure out how to not be a terrible person. Yeah, it wasn't your story to tell, but your family really should have dealt with her years ago. They really are the buttholes here. This was the first time she had ever said anything like this where they could hear it. Except she also said that they knew the cousin treated her badly and brushed it off before that. Kay was horrible to me about it every time and would tell me how stupid I am and how I'm an ugly white bitch. My dad and uncle always just brushed it off and I just had bite my tongue and take it. As in she told them and they probably thought she was exaggerating or were avoiding the very thing that happened with original poster later on. Yeah. Her identity couldn't coexist with Ops as it was, because her identity relied on making original poster another. NTAK was the one who spent years trying to exclude you based on genetic characteristics. Her parents really should have reined her in long ago. She's having an identity crisis of her own making. I am wondering if Kay had a sneaking suspicion about her own paternity all her life. You know how kids sometimes overhear things that their parents think they are too young to understand? She has a huge amount of anger before this issue with original poster even erupted. I would say that is very possible, even likely. Even if she wasn't aware of the specifics, the fact the rest of the family knew about the affair may have influenced their behavior towards a youth Kay may have picked up on that herself, even if she couldn't articulate what was different, realized there was an issue, and tried to compensate by becoming militant about her desired heritage. Does it excuse her behavior? Hell no. I can simply see it happening that way, and her identity crisis is simply her karma biting her in the butt for her mistreatment of her cousin, who is very much not the butthole. I'd say there was hope that, when the dust settles, Op's relationship with Kay may improve, but given the fact it sounds like Kay's mother has enabled her daughter's behavior all these years, hence the attitude in the first place, I don't see this really happening. Also glad everyone else on Op's father's side of the family aren't taking sides. I was thinking the same thing, It could be that she had an inkling or was treated differently or figured out something was wrong privately. It's not uncommon for those feelings of hurt, rejection and being an outsider to cause projection and inflicting harm on those around her. Of course, it doesn't justify her behavior towards original poster, and it sounds like she needs therapy to address her internalized racism and lack of empathy. Of course, this would explain some of her actions and choices, but it's not an excuse, and she needs to address these issues and apologize for her hurtful actions. Op is NTA, but the family needs to hold themselves accountable for how they have handled this situation as well. Her father should have told her that he was honorary long before, but I can see that when you have been accepted all of your life you may not realize that you need to pass on this information to your kids, so in a way Kay's father is in butthole here for allowing Kay to believe that he was blood tribal and thus she was instead of second-generation honorary tribe. Kay isn't the result of an affair, her father was. Her paternity is normal. Judging by how her aunt cussed her out and also disowned her, she got that toxic-ass personality from her. Thank you for watching. Please subscribe to be the first to know about Red Rabbit Reader's new videos. If you like our videos, please like them on YouTube and share them with your friends. We welcome your comments below. Press to start another of our videos.